like to call the July the 6th, 2020 Harnett County Board of Commissioners meeting to order, and I'll ask Commissioner Mark Johnson to have our allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, and we just praise you and thank you so much for giving us such a beautiful day and a wonderful world to live in. We ask for your blessings to shine down upon us as we have some problems that are unexpected and taking devastating toll on our world. We have so many good things here and so many blessings. We just ask for you to step in and help us cure the ills that we have now. And we thank you for all that you do for us, and ask for your blessings to be bestowed upon this county government this morning to make decisions for Harnett County. We love you and we thank you, Father. Amen.
Amen. Do we have any additions or deletions to the published agenda?
We have one add-on suggestion. It would be 4G. It's the fiscal year 2020 coronavirus emergency supplemental funding that's available through the Office of Justice, and Sheriff's Office is requesting that we add this to the agenda. There's no local match.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the published agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the published agenda as amended.
This is Commissioner Springle, a second.
Any discussion? Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Springle?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes. It's 5-0. Now do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Commissioner Springle make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Do we have a second? Second. Have 2 seconds. Any discussion? Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Springle?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes. It's 5-0. Do we have any appointments?
Mr. Chairman, we do. We've got several. I move that we approve the following appointments for District H Tourism Board. Kevin Mushra would like to be reappointed as for lodging member of this board. John Privet would like to be reappointed for the Business and Tourism member of this board. And then on the Social Services Board, Johnny McKinney would like to serve on this board. His application was attached. And Triangle Workforce Development Board, Carolyn Blue and Russell Heeb request reappointment to this board for a 2-year term.
I assume you made that in the form of a motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Springle?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes. It's 5-0. Now we're going to have an update on broadband in Harnett County. Ira Hall, I guess you're making the presentation.
Yeah, I'll introduce Ira and give a little bit of background initially. So we're here this morning to provide you with an update on where the county stands in terms of broadband development. As you know, expanding broadband has been a priority of the board in this county for some time. It's been a legislative priority of the Board of Commissioners since at least 2015. The county completed a broadband survey of residents last year and businesses to determine where gaps exist and where there is a need for and interest in more reliable broadband service. The goal is to use this information to get an idea of where there is interest and to provide that information to potential partner broadband providers to entice them to expand broadband within Harnett County. This is also an issue that our legislative delegation considers a priority, and there's been a number of bills throughout the years on this issue. The growing rural economies with access to technology, or GREAT program, was developed to provide grants to private broadband providers for deployment of broadband for underserved areas of North Carolina. Related to this, there have been a couple of challenges that we've had to overcome. Initially, this was only available to Tier 1 counties, but it has since been expanded to Tier 2 counties, of which Harnett County is one. And it also requires a broadband provider to serve as a partner, since counties at this time do not have statutory authority to run our own infrastructure. In addition to running fiber, there are also a number of other opportunities related to wireless broadband and satellite-based broadband service with some bills that are currently in the General Assembly. To date, our position has been an all options are on the table approach to broadband, though we recognize some options do have more promise and feasibility than others. So with that, I've asked Harnett County Information Technology Director Ira Hall to come today to share what has been done in Harnett County, why it's been done, what our challenges have been and currently are related to expanding broadband, and where we are today. So I will turn it over to Ira for that presentation.
Thank you, Brian.
So I just put together a short presentation on this. It's really not necessary for anything other than just some visuals. The first thing I wanted to walk everybody through is just kind of a timeline what we've done over the last decade or so. This really started back in 2010. I dug up some old emails from Paula, the Economic Development Commissioner at that time, and myself, and just kind of went back and forth on some options for some of our economic development sites, and just trying to figure out how to get broadband to them, because that was a key factor in being able to bring in manufacturing. Way back in 2010, that was one of the #1 things they were looking for. So we started a lot of initial meetings with our local ISPs, most of them being incumbent, well actually all of them being incumbent at that point. And all the incumbents would be Charter, Time Warner, CenturyLink, Windstream, all those guys that you hear about all the time that's in Harnett County. So we talked to them and just really went through a lot of processes with them, and just really couldn't ever get any momentum, couldn't get any movement. They were interested in doing their own thing, of course, and they, the biggest thing is if we can provide them grant money or monies to install infrastructure, they were interested in doing things. But other than that, they really weren't interested in being a partner with us at that point in time. So Harnett County continued to work with these guys and just talked to them, and had several meetings over those 6 or 7 years there. And finally in 2016, we started talking to our state broadband infrastructure office. Just started working with that time George Collier was our representative from there. And we just started talking about options for us. And I started attending regular meetings around the state, around fiber and broadband. And was introduced to some more people, and met some folks from ECC Technologies, and based on the recommendations from the State Broadband Infrastructure Office and some of the conversations I had with ECC, it just seemed like a great time to develop a partnership with them to see where we could go, and how we could bring interest to Harnett County from other ISPs, internet service providers. So that was around 2016 timeframe. We actually started our partnership with ECC around November 2016. So the first thing we did with ECC was the broadband inventory. So what they did is actually put boots on the ground and rode around our whole county. And I think most of you at least have seen some of the maps and some of the things that they did for us, and just told us where our infrastructure was. Because at that point in time, incumbents were very unwilling to share where they were at. They wouldn't really tell us exactly where they had fiber, where they had service in different areas. And so the only choice we had, and this is something that the State Infrastructure Office had done for about 10 other counties, and ECC was the company they chose to do it. And so they came to Harnett County around 2017, rode the roads, actually had somebody out on there marking down where the fiber poles were at, where fiber was running down on telephone poles, and power lines and all that stuff, and just gave us a good map of what Harnett County had at that time. Because the incumbents declare it's, oh gosh, I'm going to lose my word, but secret. I'm going to just use the word secret. That's not the right term, but something that's not for us to reveal. We really can't announce and tell where everybody is, but we're going to use that information.
Proprietary.
Proprietary. Thank you. I heard it, but I couldn't tell where it came from. So we've got that information though, and we're able to show it, just like the incumbents showed it to us. We're able to show that information to people that are interested, but we can't give it to them for them to use. So we've got that information now, and that's very helpful to the people that we've been able to have conversations with. So after the inventory meeting, or inventory project with ECC, we actually started talking to potential ISPs. And I'll list off some on the next slide on who we talked to and how that all kind of went. And then after that, after lots of meetings and no real momentum still, we decided to do a broadband survey, which basically all of you guys were around at that point. It was a survey of all of our citizens or residents in Harnett County, or had an option to take the survey. All of our residents did. We had about 1,500 participants, but they told us what broadband they had, what they were interested in, why they didn't have it, or what they really needed it for. All that information was there, and that's, again, all of the internet service providers that we've talked to has found that information very helpful and useful in looking at our county as a possible place to expand their business and infrastructure. So from June 2019, that's when the broadband survey kind of wrapped up. We've done more and more meetings, ISP meetings, just talking to different people, just trying to figure out what options we have and what we could do to pull somebody in. And as we went through this, grants always kept coming up. And as Brian mentioned in his opening, partnership was a key word and all that. And it's just kind of a hard balance of finding a strong partner that's interested in coming into Harnett County, that's not asking for us to just basically dump everything onto them. So we just keep having these conversations, trying to figure out how the partner can come in and be successful without Harnett County having just to give them the world. And so then the GREAT grant, which Brian has mentioned, as of this summer, has finally opened up to our tier of a county. So we're a tier 2 county. And so we have an opportunity to apply for that GREAT grant. So there's several ISPs that are interested in partnering with us on that, and that'll help us tremendously. Of course, Harnett County will have to match some of the funds that are coming from the GREAT grant and help the ISP get off and get started. But that's just some of the things that we're looking at doing. So the RFP is where we're at today. As of today, I'm hoping sometime today we're going to actually release that for the street. The RFP is just a request for proposal for ISPs to respond to it and tell us what they would do if they could come to Harnett County and what they would require of Harnett County and what grants they would be going after to get into Harnett County and make our infrastructure better for broadband. So today, hopefully, Renee and I will continue to work together, and we'll get that posted, and we'll get that out on the state system, and we'll touch base with all the ISPs that we had discussion with, and just make sure they know about the RFP and they can respond to it. We've got a couple that are pretty strong interest from our meetings over the last 6 to 12 months. I think we actually have a couple good contenders to come in and expand some infrastructure for us. Now, because of COVID and all the other stuff, the money that the county would be able to come up with, it's going to be a little bit tougher to provide this, but a lot of them are really thinking they can make a go of it with our help to come alongside of in the GREAT grant possibilities. And then within the RFP, I put this last date on here in January 2021. That's kind of our expectations in RFP. Once they respond, we're hoping they get something started in January 2021. So we're looking for a pretty tight time frame to get this stuff going. Just hoping to move forward quickly as possible. Any questions on any of that yet? No. All right. So I just wanted to talk about the provider conversations that we've had, just some light information on what we've done over the last 10 years or so. The incumbent providers, I already kind of mentioned Spectrum, which used to be Charter Time Warner. They combined a few years back. CenturyLink and Windstream. Those all we've had conversations with. Again, they've been here for decades, and they're just, I won't say they're unwilling to work with us, but they want to do their own thing, and they want us to come alongside of what they're doing and not necessarily work with us in something new and different. Other providers that are actually in the county now are Conterra and Segra, which used to be called Spirit. Segra bought Spirit out a few years, well, I think it's been a couple years ago. I think Segra is the one that built the ball field or helped pay for some of the ball field in Fayetteville too, just to bring that bell in the name. But Segra actually has a line that goes up through Coates and goes through Anger, and we've had some conversations recently with Segra around what's going on in Anger and just seeing what they can do. But both Conterra and Segra are not interested in serving our residents. They're interested in infrastructure and in businesses of a decent size. They're really truly a pure fiber player with high-speed bandwidth. So most residents would not be willing or able to pay for the type of speeds that they're offering and providing. Some of the other things we've done, I put a couple of co-ops that we've talked to that are around us. I left off Central Electric. Based on our conversations, they don't have a lot of infrastructure within Harnett County that they'd run fiber to, so they might be an option for us at some point. We had several meetings with South River Electric around this. Right now, they just desire to focus on what they're meant to do as electric. They're still talking about it, and they see it as a possible future option for them. They're just still not quite ready to make that move to fiber from our conversations so far. And then Star Telephone, we've had a lot of conversations with them, several over the last few years. They're just, because of the great grant and their expansions into rural, Tier 1 rural communities, they're going into Bladen County and the eastern part of North Carolina. They really haven't started moving west for any reason yet, so they just haven't had a need to come this way. So there's still conversations, some options there, but they really haven't shown a lot of desire to come to Harnett County yet. The other possible providers, that's the key for us right now. Those are the ones that we're looking at and talking with. We've been meeting a lot with, and they've shown interest based on the information we were able to provide them through the survey and the inventory that we did over the last few years. NC Wireless, Open Broadband, Wilkes Communication. I list them. They're actually a co-op out in Wilkes County, but they bought out a wireless internet service provider called Skyrunner, which is out of Asheville. And we had some good conversations with Skyrunner several years ago, but because of the buyout and the assimilation of Skyrunner to Wilkes Communication, they've just kind of left off any major projects. They're not ready to take on anything major. They're trying to figure out how to make all that work for them internally. We've talked to CloudWise recently, and they're very interested in some of the things we got going on. And then we've also talked to Ting, which that's the fiber provider that's coming out of Holly Springs and Fuquay. Again, they're interested if we can help them get into here. It's been a few years since I've had a conversation with Ting. I actually met with Holly Springs IT director and Ting at a broadband meeting that we had a few years ago, and they were very interested in what we had going on, but they were really heavily tied up in Holly Springs and Fuquay area. So that's really all I have. I just want to bring everybody up to date and make sure everybody's on the same page and introduce the fact that we're doing that RFP, which I'm really excited about. I'm hoping that's going to be the final step for us to get a provider in here and get some movement. Is there any questions on what we've done so far, or anything that comes to mind? Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner McCoy, Central Link have some points of connectivity.
Yeah, they've got a small, like a quarter of the county in the western and southern part, more towards the Lee, Sanford area.
And in the town area too, they don't have any?
No, nothing in any of the towns.
Well, I have Central Link.
Central, keep up with.
And broadband, I have, okay.
You have Central Electric Power here in Lillington?
No, it's Central, not CenturyLink.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Central Electric Co-op is a
Oh,
power
okay.
company out of Sanford, Lee
Okay,
County.
I
Sorry.
got you now. I was just wondering about that, because that gets spelled.
Yeah. My southern slang kicked in a little bit there. I'm sorry. CenturyLink is the telephone ISP provider that you have probably at your home, and Central Electric is the co-op out of Sanford.
Okay,
Lee
that's what I was wondering, but you had it up there, and I was wondering, hey. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
So in our RFP, what are we asking the provider to do?
So we're asking them to, I should have brought a copy of that with me. They're basically asking them to come into the county and start providing service to our citizens. We list out all the infrastructure and all the things that Harnett County has an opportunity for them to get on and do. We list the survey and the information that we've gathered for them so they can have a good spot to start at. And then we're asking them to provide a minimum of, which is the current standard for broadband, is 25 meg down and 3 meg up within the RFP. And we're asking them to come in and give us an overall plan for the county, not just to come in and pick out hot spots, a neighborhood or something that they can go in and write out. We want an overall view of the county And we're asking them to give as much coverage as quickly as possible within 3 years to as many residents as available to it. And
Now, would they contact developers as we develop subdivisions, that way they would?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, is anytime we have information that we can provide to them, is that, we can give that to them and get them going and get them off and running as quick as possible. I'm not sure what available, I don't know how much information we can provide to them around developments immediately, but as soon as we can give that to them as a public information stuff, I'd like to be able to provide that to them. One company actually came in with a pretty substantial plan, and we just talked through it a little bit, and it looked like we could get somewhere between 60 and 80% of the county pretty quick within 3 to 4 years, if the plan played out as we desired it to, and we're able to get the grants and able to fund the extra stuff from the county side.
Now, with Skyrunner, they're just a provider. They're not going to put in the infrastructure. Will they put that in also?
So what most of the possible providers will do is actually come in and lease internet service from a CenturyLink, a top tier provider, and then they will install what's called the last mile infrastructure from the home back to that provider. So that's where Conterra and Sabre probably will help us out a lot, because they're not one of the old incumbents, and they're interested in giving us extra bandwidth at a decent cost.
Well, I just want to say, as Commissioner McCoy, I'm real proud of the report, simply because it's a hot subject here in Harnett County. And it's good to let our citizens know that we're still working on it, simply because a lot of them really think we can provide it, and which we can't. And you're working in a way that hopefully we have hope that we're going to have it in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or thoughts?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, if he's here, is John Matthews, Central Carolina Community College.
Yes, I'm right here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you for giving me a minute, and thank you to County Manager Stewart for putting me on the agenda. I come to you this morning out of somewhat of a sense of urgency, and it's something I think you'll fully understand, but I felt in the interest of being fully transparent, we needed to bring it formally to you. So essentially what the issue that has emerged the past few weeks is that you're well acquainted with the Harnett Promise program, where we promise to subsidize the tuition and fees for county residents or high school graduates from this past year, as long as they meet certain criteria, whether that's public school, private school, or homeschool. One of the things that emerged during the COVID crisis was we had a small number of students that our career counselors, or career coaches as we call it, that were embedded in the high schools, have identified as having been on track to complete the credit hour dual enrollment requirement. And if you could, just to refer so you have it for the record, it's section 1 of our memorandum of understanding, subsection, well, it's actually be section 1.3. And it states that they have successfully completed at least 4 dual enrollment courses or 12 dual enrollment credit hours. And we waived that requirement for the first cohort that started in August 2019, but that requirement was on the books to be applied to the incoming crop. But we did have a small number of students that were identified late in their high school senior year as having intended to complete the 12-hour requirement, but due to COVID-19, and typically the issue was access to the internet, they could not complete all of those credit hours. So these are students that did everything they were supposed to do, but because of an issue or a problem outside of their control, they could not complete the full 12-hour/4 course requirement. What we would ask the Board of Commissioners to consider is granting the college the authority to determine, based on the evidence we had through advising, registration records, etc., any student that would have otherwise qualified under the Harnett Promise eligibility guidelines, and to grant them eligibility based on their intentions to complete the credit hours. And so to give you some context, we're not talking about a student who might have done one college course and then not signed up for anything else. What we're seeing in our student body is students that have completed all but maybe one course, or we're going to do 2 classes in their last semester, and due again to COVID-19 complications simply could not finish the semester out. So essentially it's a simple ask. It's granting the college the authority to triage those applications in such a way that a student that by all evidences was on track to complete that 12-hour or 4-course requirement, we grant them consideration as eligible students. So I'll sit back and take any questions you have regarding that.
John, how many students, do you have how many students you're talking about, not generally out here?
I can give you a ballpark number. Right now, we're actually filtering through applications. We had 153 Harnett apps as of a little over a week ago. We're trying to catch up from the holiday now, so we're on track to trend a little higher than we were last year, or on par with where we were last year. But I'll give you an example. The high school that brought this to my attention on my radar, Tracy Autry had communicated that she had 5 students that she had intentionally put in a seated class at Triton that was going to be in the second 8-week semester. And that was going to be the class that gave them their eligibility. So she had 5 names she could give me just from Triton alone. So my guess is if you expand this out to the 4 traditional high schools, Harnett County Early College should not be an issue, because if they completed there, they would have had the 12 hours or 4 courses halfway through their junior year. So I don't expect any from them, and I'm not from any homeschool students or private school students. But I would guess that we have between 20 and 40 max. And I do not perceive in terms of raw numbers that this would move the needle significantly above and beyond. We're well below in terms of the cost of the county, what was appropriated to begin with.
Okay, good. Anyone else have any questions?
John, you said we got around 153. How many kids do we have last year?
We had 212 that actually got their ticket punched last year by August when we started. And like I said, this is a little over a week ago, where we had 153 apps associated with Harnett-based high school graduates. So I'd love to give you a number at the moment, but it's literally being updated hour by hour. So if I give you a number now, it's going to be outdated by the end of the day. But trend-wise, we're on track to be where we were last year, hopefully a little above where we were last year. But we're not looking at necessarily doubling or tripling from last year. That would not be a realistic expectation.
Right. Well, that's good numbers. I'm glad to hear the students are using it.
Yes, and just so you're aware, I did a Facebook Live session last week with the college's Facebook account. Got some really good questions from parents and high school graduates, and there was a student, a parent of a student, just happened to have gone to high school with her husband 140 years ago. But anyway, she said, "Bless you all, and thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity." And I took a chance to say, please, if you see any of our county commissioners, please thank them, because they're the ones that promoted this idea and endorsed it formally. So yeah, we've gotten, again, another good response from the county.
Thank you. Any other questions? We would entertain a motion then.
I make a motion that we give the Central Carolina Community College the right to investigate each and every claim and do what they deem necessary.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Springer?
Yes.
Commissioner Penny votes yes, it's 5-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much, folks.
Next on our list is designation of voting delegate for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners 113th Annual Conference. Do we have a volunteer?
I've been doing it the last few years, but I don't mind doing it.
We surely would take your volunteerism, I'm assuming.
Since you was already there.
Do we need a motion on that? We just do it by acclamation, Dwight?
I'm going to do a motion.
Yeah, you
We're gonna need a motion. I make the motion that Gordon Spring will be, he has volunteered to be our delegate to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Annual Conference. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Penny votes yes. I'm assuming Gordon votes yes because he
Yes.
volunteered, so yes. So
He volunteered.
it's 5-0. Thank you, Gordon. Next, we have the county manager's report.
I just want to give you the numbers from the weekend for COVID-19. I spoke with John Rouse this morning. Nothing out of the ordinary happened over the weekend. We're in a kind of stable. The case count's going up, but the deaths are staying the same. So we're at 698 with 30 deaths at this point.
Did he tell you to recover?
No. He's going to send out his pack of information this afternoon with all the details in it. He didn't have it ready yet. But
If my memory serves me correct, we had about 48 over the weekend. I think it was 650 Friday when I posted it. Okay.
And then that number will change this morning when the report comes in, usually by noon.
Okay.
But that was as of now. And the only other thing I have to talk about, just briefly, if you notice your DSS report that they turned in, back in March, I think it was, March, they hit over $1 million collected in child support. So just that was they hit the million mark in March, and I failed to mention that, so I wanted you to see that on that report.
And that was for 2020?
Just,
Oh, yeah.
right.
Good
Just
job.
that was in 1 month in 2020, yes.
I think their goal is, what's the year-to-date number?
9 million so
9
far.
million.
Mhm.
I think their goal is like 9.6 or something like that, but they're going to.
They're going to surpass it, yeah.
Good job.
And what they're able to do is they're now able to go out for, they're going after lottery winnings, tax refunds. I mean, anything they can do to get this child support paid. They've done a great job,
They have, and I just want to give them a shout out publicly, the child support staff. They've worked really hard because they've not been in the office either, and they've been able to keep on going through teleworking, so it's been a good thing.
Yeah, make him daddy's buddy. Good job. Great.
And then the only other thing I had was the annual conference that we just spoke about. It's going to be virtually this year, but we need to know which of you are going to attend the NCACC annual conference, so we can get you registered.
I haven't missed one subject.
Well, it's very abbreviated. I don't know if y'all saw the agenda, but it's pretty abbreviated. It starts on Wednesday, August 5th, like at 3 in the afternoon, and then on Thursday, it's just in the morning, and then Friday, it's in the afternoon. So it's really shortened. It's much more compressed. Not a big time commitment. So, thank you.
I missed the
Do we have any new business? Then the report of question, and all right, we've got the signal. We have no closed session. We're on the roll. This is about what, five meetings in a row, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Do we have a second? It's unanimous. We all agree we adjourn.
It's about the shortest meeting we ever had.
Pretty close.
Yeah, we're about 11 minutes.